In today's episode, we're going to be talking Reddit versus Wall Street, the whole Robinhood fiasco, Elon Musk, hashtagging Bitcoin, and a little bit of QRL. Let's dive in. What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Quantum Resistant Ledger channel, your video portal into the world of post-quantum digital asset security. We got a doozy here today. Strike, our director of outreach, is here with me. Strike, awesome to have you here. It's a wild week, not only in crypto land, but I don't know, pretty much everywhere land these days. How's it going?
Good. I hear you. I hear you say wild week, and then I think to myself, it's all relative. This was a particularly wild week, but also probably wild by anyone's definition. So lots to talk about. Let's get to it.
Yeah, so we're gonna dive in for this episode. For context, for those watching, if this is your first time watching this on the show, we dive into all things post-quantum digital asset security. But we also do other episodes where we'll talk on broader parts of the industry, whether it be related to what's happening now with Bitcoin, whether it be other areas of crypto, DeFi. Today's episode is going to be a little bit more focused on current events. So we're going to be talking about Reddit and GameStop a little bit, the whole Robinhood fiasco, Elon teeing Bitcoin to Mars, and a little bit of QRL at the end. So Strike, before I dive into my first question that I want to ask, I want to just roll the tape back just a few days to give the viewers at home just a little bit of context on where this whole GameStop, Reddit, Wall Street bets fiasco, how it all kind of started. So for those of you watching at home, really quick, what happened was a few days ago, a lot of public attention nationally all over the place has been made around what Wall Street Bets is. So in short, Wall Street Bets is a subreddit. It's kind of like 4chan meets Bloomberg investing. That's at least what, how they've coined it. And what happened is late last year, within the community, they saw that a large hedge fund had been heavily shorting GameStop, GME. And GME, obviously, for the past few years, GameStop has a lot of physical locations. They sell stuff in person. Obviously, with COVID, that didn't help their business, but it was slowly going down. And just anytime that a short is being squeezed, let's say a stock is at X amount of dollars, let's just use 100 for an easy example. If that stock is to go down, the people that have shorted that stock, they're borrowing it and selling immediately and then hoping to cover it later to make a profit on that difference. But what happens is if the opposite happens, they can be in big trouble. So what happened is retail investors, people, the masses, within Wall Street Bets were putting calls and they were, purchasing shares of the stock. And then the brokers are getting nervous that they weren't going to get paid. So then the people, the hedge funds, the big money was forced to be able to have to, cover. When all the close is short all around the same time at once, that is essentially what a short squeeze is, and that elevates the price up. And this is what ultimately led to, what we're seeing now. This was the first example. You're seeing this with AMC. You're seeing this with Bed Bath and Beyond, and a slew of other companies. But in essence, that's what kind of got this whole thing started. I want to dive into the whole Robinhood stopping, securities, the buying of securities, because I think this is obviously more is going to come out over the next few weeks. If you're watching this now, or maybe it's already past at this point, there's more to it than, there's three sides of the story, but this is really kind of, it's still concerning. So what I want to do first, Strike, is I want to ask you as a starting opening question. I want to ask, do you buy into the narrative that Robinhood has said they've came out and stated, I think on CNBC yesterday, they said, hey, we are, Robinhood, we're limited to the buying of securities. And, absolutely, we did not do it for hedge funds, for market makers. And they said that, as Robinhood, I'll just read the quote real quick. They're a brokerage firm. We have a lot of financial requirements for net capital requirements and clearinghouse, and it wasn't a liquidity problem. Do you buy into that or not? Somewhat or not at all?
Good question. So I'm going to prefix with, this is my opinion. Opinions may vary.
Yeah.
Even within this project. But these are my thoughts. about it. So Melvin Capital was one of the biggest funds that was shorting GameStop.
Yeah.
GameStop or GME. So they were short selling, as you said. So Redditors and gamers pushed back. They saw this using publicly available data, right? And then they decided to all at the same time start purchasing the stock, and that resulted in the short squeeze, which moved the price up to what, $500-$600, something like that. So to your question, GameStop, their stock ceased to be traded on Robinhood because Robinhood it simply did not allow purchasing anymore. They only allowed you to, I think they said, fully close the positions or simply just not be able to purchase, which drove the price down. So this to me, this was very reminiscent of the Koch brothers in 1980 when they cornered the silver market, right? Yeah. And drove the price of silver to $50, $51, right there in 1980. And the comics stepped in and said, "Hey, you can't do this," which very much sounds like, hey, the system works as long as the right people make money and the wrong people lose money. That's how this system works. You can't do that. We're going to change the rules because this is not how this system functions. So I think I possibly might have revealed part of my opinion already, but to put things into context, according to a June report from the Financial Times, $39 million of Robinhood's revenues from equities and options came from Citadel Securities, a market maker sister firm of Citadel, which essentially makes Citadel one of Robinhood's biggest customers. Yep. So Robinhood has hedge fund customers. But wait a second, if Robinhood's customers are hedge funds, what is their product? So the same logic kind of sounds like, if Facebook doesn't charge for social networking, what's the product?
It's exactly. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So if you look at an example, say like Facebook, if you look at the average of what a user, I think it's like $4 a month. So it's like adds up to be like $50 a year is what you are worth if you're an average user on the platform. But for Robinhood, it's just kind of comical in the sense too, because obviously, the whole story of Robinhood and then their idea of, no commissions and stuff. It's just, they should be on the side of integrity, and I'm sure more will come out on it, but I'm just kind of adding on to your point.
For retail that are trading on Robinhood, to me, it's kind of like the old poker joke. If you look around at the table and you can't spot the sucker, that's how that goes. So that's my opinion. It'll be really interesting to see how this plays out, because I think I saw something on the news that they were going to do at least it was suggested, a congressional hearing, to look into it. And if you look at it, this is the second time in as many months that a group of people have organized and essentially overthrown a large establishment, right?
Yep. So
in my head right now, I'm the plankton, if you will, are turning on the whale shark.
Yeah.
Okay. They're realizing that they've been getting devoured, and they're losing their brothers and sisters and families. So this is what I see playing out in my head.
I think another part to add is that, in Wall Street, in the financial crisis of 2008, a lot of risk was taken, and in the end of that, unfortunately, a lot of retail investors got screwed. And I think there's a lot of battle scars or not really battle scars, but just kind of like a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouth. And this time around, a lot of those people that maybe at the time were a little bit younger, they have a bit more spending power as a retail investor now. They don't necessarily have the best view of Wall Street. So,
no, that's a great point, right? Because at that time in 2008. Was a shock to many people, but it really put front and center this concept of moral hazard, right?
Yep.
If I'm going to get bailed out anyway, then my exposure is not as much as it is for someone else, because I will get bailed out because, the whole too big to fail thing. I will get the safety net. The little guys don't get the safety net, so I can take on more risk. And essentially what this is, much like my shirt is a non-violent protest against the negative 10-degree weather outside here in Wisconsin, Bitcoin is a non-violent protest and a fight against systemic financial inequality. And what's happening here is we're seeing people start to realize this. It's always been there.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and social media and increasing debasement of currency and all the COVID, all of these multifaceted things all coming together are creating almost what appears to be like this perfect storm of something yet to come. Well, I think that about sums it up. Fill in the blanks.
Yeah. And I think one of the quotes I saw, I'll probably be paraphrasing a little bit, but it was one I saw the other day, and it was regarding, hey, if one hedge fund screws over 1 million people, they think that's okay. But if 1 million people screw over one hedge fund for them betting against a company, then it's like they want a different set of rules. So I'm paraphrasing on the exact quote, but it's obviously it's pretty evident what's occurring. But I want to segue, moving on from the Robinhood fiasco. Hopefully, stuff will get figured out there a little bit, but it's alarming regardless. I want to move into a topic of Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey, among others, have pretty much been subtly with their a strong clout on Twitter by putting one-word bios of Bitcoin into their profiles. They have boosted it to not to Mars, but they've pretty much given a signal that they're believers in it. Obviously, we know Jack Dorsey would square everything. He's been a big backer for a long time, but as more people are recognizing it, it's slowly moving more into the mainstream, and it's getting to a percentage point where after that, it's going to gain a big. I just think it once it hits 2.5% or whatever the adoption number is, it's going to matter more and more over time. So let's just dive into that for a second. What are your thoughts on the whole Elon? Does he have BTC and their treasury for Tesla and SpaceX? What's your take?
My first take is I wish Elon would have timed a little bit better, because I think it was like 2 a.m. here and my phone was going buzz, 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 with the Bitcoin price fluctuating as much as it was. But, I have to wonder, is Elon's timing on with his updating his bio on his Twitter with the word Bitcoin, 8 bytes Bitcoin plus the little icon.
Yeah.
Was that timing based on, these recent events of, Redditors rising up against financial inequality? Or was that the, Mr. Sailor, the little birdie whispering in Elon's ear? I really don't know. Maybe it was both. But his timing, his timing on the Twitter post was, I guess, ironic.
Yeah.
But I guess we may never get that question answered. Which, if he's going to post on Twitter and update his bio to say Bitcoin, and then say, in retrospect or in hindsight, it was bound to happen anyway, whatever the wording was. It makes you wonder: would you post something, richest person in the world or not? Would you post something like that without having some skin in the game as far as cryptocurrency goes, or as far as Bitcoin goes? I don't know if it matters at that level, but it would seem, with Elon being such a logical thinker, it might seem to me, it seems a little paradoxical, but yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, seems a little bit more serious than Dogecoin memes, but that's just my take on it. But regarding all of this stuff, whether it be the stuff with pushback against the establishment, with Wall Street bets, a lot of retail versus Wall Street, is this a good thing of signs to come, just in general, for not necessarily just in crypto, is for outlook? Let's just say, I don't know, 3, 6, 12 months. Is this a good sign, bad sign? What's your opinion on that?
So that depends on who you are. Are you pro crypto, or are you pro fiat, or not have not been able to? And I'm not faulting anyone that hasn't been able to make this transition, because this is an epiphany moment when you really start to question what money actually is, and then you change it in your head. It's like a light switch, like this. And this goes against decades more of institutional programming. So that's difficult. to get passed. So is it good or it's bad? Elon is like the gold standard for investment. Okay, if in 2020, if you were in Tesla stock, you've gotten at least a few high fives from others that you talked into buying Tesla stock as well. Bitcoin's essentially considered to be the gold standard for crypto. So is this good? I think this is good because what you have are these two dominant forces of the gold standard of investment and the gold standard of crypto coming together, and now they're about to start a beautiful family with a bunch of retail offspring.
Yeah. And I was just more asking as if I had no opinion on it, just to kind of get your take. But I think it's a good sign as well. I think there's a lot of factors that are all kind of coming together at a right time for it to all snowball. I do not think if it wasn't for, COVID, I think this might have been less amplified, but I think a lot of people have, there's a lot of variables that play into it of, why people have so much attention or are paying so much attention to stuff. People are online more. People are, are definitely investing differently. People are speculating. But for the industry as a whole, for crypto, I think a lot of good things are to come in 2021. And I think we're only very early into it. So I want to close out this episode by asking you, with all this stuff going on, we're only very recently into 2021. How does QRL fit into this whole picture with everything that we've been talking about in this episode, Strike?
Sure. So if you're not familiar with the QRL, we are a purpose-built provably quantum secure blockchain project. We're not an ERC20. We have our own, it's our own chain. We've been running for over 2 years. And what we do is we are essentially, I would say, we're a quantum insurance policy that supports Bitcoin's fight against systemic financial inequality. In other words, we like Bitcoin, we like Ethereum, we like these big cap coins. We're not saying we're better. I've said this before. We're not saying we're better than they are. But what we do want you to do is consider your risk and your exposure to new and upcoming technologies. Specifically the quantum threat. And if you haven't read much about the quantum threat, we've done I'd say quite a bit of material on our YouTube channel that breaks a lot of it down. But to make it simple, the private, if you have a Bitcoin wallet, you have a private key and you have a public key and you have a Bitcoin address, and the address is what everyone sends to. Being able to take a public key and being able to theoretically with a quantum computer using what's called Shor's algorithm, being able to turn that into a private key as more and more time passes is starting to look like a future inevitability. So our project is essentially this quantum insurance policy that helps you keep your digital assets secure. So we're building out, we have multiple projects that we're working on. One of which is Enclave. If you haven't heard about Enclave, it will allow you to quantum secure actual Ethereum and a select subset of the
URL is right here.
Yep. And that's one of our projects. We also have an ephemeral messaging project, which is going to be a way that we're going to try and tie in third-party developers in being able to create their own quantum secure applications, be it quantum secure, give them the keys, the post-quantum keys, so to speak, in order to develop, say, a post-quantum version of Skype or a post-quantum version of a messaging app, something like that. So these are all projects we're working on. The team is made up of quantum computer optimistic, speculatively optimistic professionals, and that's our position. So check us out if you haven't yet at www.qrl.org. And in the meantime, until Y2Q, as we call it, Ryan will continue to provide you weekly updates in the crypto and blockchain universe. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Strike. And no, if you enjoy this episode, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. That way, when we come out with next videos, you will be the very first to know. And Strike, there's a lot covered today, this week. I feel like every day is a week, and every week is like a year lately with how much is moving in the space. But I think it's net positive, moving in the right direction. Even though there are, if you're watching this, there are a lot of like scary aspects of people think about it like, you have family members, people have a lot of money in different places. Maybe people don't know too much about crypto, but I think the most important part is whether you are very new to being in the crypto industry or you've been around for a while, is just making sure that you are helping educate people. You're not trying to throw it all in their face right away. Try to make sure that you're just taking a few things. So if you're watching this video and you're like, well, I kind of, I'm curious about the quantum threat or anything else, first start out, go to the QRL.org, read through our white paper. If you're new, this is your first video, watch a few of our old videos and just try to get a little bit of a taste, a little bit of understanding about what Shore's algorithm is, ECDSA, really understanding what the fundamentals are, and then you can start to dive down the rabbit hole more. And Strike, I appreciate you diving into a few different topics, both the very noteworthy news topical ones, and diving into a little bit more specifics. But I appreciate it, Strike.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, until next time, we will see you in our next week's video. Before then, make sure you're keeping your digital assets secure, and we will see you in next week's video. Adios.